All right, trying this again due to a lot of technical difficulties. Camera is not working, audio is not working. We did a couple streams, the audio was working. Hopefully the audio is working this time. If not, let me know in the chat immediately. We'll try to get it fixed again. I'm here with Rishi. Today we're talking about black coffee, why you hate it, and how to learn to love it because it's an incredible thing. Rishi, tell us a little bit about Brown Bear, and now I'm going to grab some coffee out of the fridge.
Grab some coffee. Brown Bear Coffee started 5 years ago. We are a boutique specialty roaster in Tampa. We're business to business. We curate coffee programs for cafes and luxury hotels that are serious about coffee, but we're also on Amazon. So we have our espresso blend is available on Amazon, and that's who we are. I'm a coffee nerd.
And just so that everybody is aware, this video is not sponsored by anybody. Everything here is bought with my own money. Nobody knows anything about anything. Even Rishi, the coffee I'm going to give away, was purchased by me. No sponsorship at all. So,
I was trying to post it so people know we're on.
The first thing we're going to get over here is this cold brew. Now, this is probably...
Oh, you're missing a...
Oh, shit. Well, live TV, as they say. So cold brew is one of the easiest ways to kind of get into a better coffee with the crappy coffee you may have, right? Would you agree to that?
Yeah, more potent coffee or richer, like a cold espresso, so to speak.
I actually broke the carafe for this thing, so this is why I need to use this thing. But yeah, so you can even take just regular coffee and just put it in a French press, cold brew it.
Yeah, with the right ratio and time, and you can cold brew anything.
So what's the typical ratio you recommend for cold brew?
Usually what I tell people use it's like a pound to about a gallon.
Well, okay, so let's back it up a little bit. Let's say you buy a bag of coffee at the store. Not many people buy.
Shoot, you're gonna have to make me do math now.
So this is a 4-to-1 ratio here.
Is that what you did?
Yeah, this is the OXO Cold Brew Rainmaker, I think it's called. I've used it quite a bit. It's pretty good. The nice thing about it is
I think that a pound to a gallon works out to that.
it has this. Ooh.
You are gonna get a little water loss, so probably about 20% of your water is gonna stay in the coffee. You can drain it out. So with about a pound to a gallon, maybe 4, even 5-to-1, you account for that loss. Yeah, and that's really usually the time is about 18 to 20 hours. So. Of course, the people at home play with it because you can put a little bit more coffee and that'll make it richer. You can grind it finer.
That's a great point because I have a video on cold brew I made a long time ago in the French press, which is really great. But it can have a really wide variance if you leave it for 20 hours, 21 hours, 22 hours. So if you try it and it's like, oh, it's too dark, it's too bitter, you probably let it go too long. It's better to pull it earlier. If you have to put it back in later, put it back in.
It's good to taste it. The good thing I will say, if you go overboard and it's too concentrated, it's better to over concentrate coffee. You can always dilute it.
Water it down. Because it will use a lot of coffee. That's the one thing that people complain about.
It will use a lot, yeah.
But you can water it down. I drink it straight.
It is 3 times the amount of caffeine. Yeah. And in the fridge, I think it's a more mellow extraction. You could leave it out. Some people put a hot steep at first, then put it in the fridge. You don't have to do that, but I say just stick it in the fridge.
There's all sorts of crazy cold brew contraptions. Have you seen the really big ones?
Yeah, the drip. And all yeah. They've come a long way. That was pretty good.
So we're gonna let this brew. This is your beer yeast fermented.
It's funny. I forgot I gave him that, and he told me I was drinking this. I'm like, where did you? It's like a year old, I think.
No, it's not that bad. So I have a bunch of different coffees here, and I kind of want to go over the roast levels. Okay. I think that's the one key point that a lot of people don't know about coffees, which is the reason why people don't drink black coffee. If you try black coffee, Folgers, or any of that stuff, it's absolute trash. You go to Starbucks, is it Pikes Peak or Pike's Place?
Pikes Peak, pretty dark.
It's not bad, but it's so dark. And the reason these coffees are so dark is because we've gotten so used to adding cream and sugar, where you have to roast them dark to withstand to it. So I have a couple coffees here. This is your
Mishka.
This is Mishka. And if I had the other cameras, I would have had the close-up camera, but we're gonna deal with this way.
If you just put it right there for you.
So I kind of want to show.
Also, smell it and tell them what you smell. Ooh.
And so Aaron,
runaway beans like cucarachas.
Aaron's running the board, so we might have him try some of these things because not a coffee snob like we are. And it's funny because I remember when you first started coffee, it was like, we're at the gym, you're like, I think I'm going to buy a coffee thing. You're like, what? And then you started roasting coffee and you started bringing it in.
Oh, yeah.
Shop. Remember that?
Yeah. There's a history to it, but to keep it short, if you go to my Instagram page, Brown Bear Roastery, scroll all the way to the bottom, you're going to find where Dennis, me, and my buddy took delivery of the roaster with a forklift, but we knew nothing about putting it together.
So here's a slight difference. And I will say Starbucks whole beans prepackaged is actually not bad.
Is that the Verona? The Verona is not. Back in the day, I used to drink the Verona. Yeah, it's not as bad.
They're not bad because if they're whole, they pretty much assume you have a grinder. They're not as dark. Mm-hmm. If you ever go to Starbucks, and I've noticed this after I started drinking your coffees, like you go to Starbucks and you look at the hopper with the beans, it
oily.
Is jet black, super oily. Just you're like, what is this? And that's because why?
All the flavors in coffee are in the oils, and once you roast it too high, they end up on the surface and get oxidized. That's where all the sexiness is. So you don't want to expose that. So if you see that,
see this here, but you can see the color difference. This is the Mishka, which is a medium roast, and this is the Starbucks. You see how dark that is?
Yeah.
I won't focus, but hold on a second. Let me see if yeah. Okay. So you see the difference there. This is starting to get like the dark roast. This is the medium. This is one of the reasons why you have to add cream and sugar and all sorts of stuff because it tastes burnt.
Yeah. And also, you go too dark, and it's a lot more, from a roast point of view, a lot more complex to that. But for simplicity, you end up destroying a lot of the carbohydrates that add sweetness. Whereas this way, you
another thing too that I see. There's two things I want to point out. One, people think that the darker, the more caffeine it has.
No.
False.
True. False. Yes.
The lighter, the more caffeine it's going to have.
Yeah.
So if you see a really dark bean, like, oh, extra roast, oh, it's more caffeinated.
It's not really, because these two beans individually have the same caffeine no matter how you roast it. This gets lighter. So if you weigh coffee by weight, you're going to end up with more beans in your grinder, in your cup, than this. And slightly you might have. But bean for bean, caffeine doesn't get destroyed, it stays.
And the second thing I want to bring up, which I think is probably the most important point of this, is there's no such thing as espresso beans.
Right, there's no specific beans. It kind of has a tangential cultural term, but you can take any coffee and roast it for an espresso. Espresso is just an application like French press. So there are light roasts that people use for espresso, and it's not traditionally what you knew. And if you're a traditional espressoista, you'd hate it. So you could run any beans in an espresso. So yeah, there's not. If I say espresso blend, it doesn't mean you can't use it in a drip. In fact, our espresso blend is medium. Most people buy it for drip and French press.
Yes. And I love this.
It's like an omni roast. It actually smells. You can't smell it, but it smells like chocolate liquor. This one does. Ours.
So you kind of touched on something that I want to get to as well, as sort of the different flavor profiles that you get from different coffees. So we'll get to that in a second.
Okay.
So past cold brew, since you can basically do this at home with a jar and sift it
Mason
through
jar,
a coffee filter or a piece of paper towel or whatever, what is the next simplest way to try coffee?
After that, I'd probably say French press is the easiest and simplest, and you can just buy it with your grinder and go.
So this is a Bodum. I think this was like $15. I will say, I was looking last night because I put everything is in the description below. I have a black package in the comments posted there, everything we're using here. The thing's got a lot more expensive. Like surprisingly more expensive than like the grinder.
A lot more
like
sexy
$35.
materials and also demand. Everyone's buying it,
supply
right?
chain issues.
Supply chain issues, yeah.
But this is I think $10. It's glass. You can use it pretty much anywhere. I've used this to go camping.
Oh yeah. Actually, French press is great when you're camping. Yeah.
So what level grind do we want to use for this?
Oh, so this is a key, and I'm gonna knock a fallacy here. Most people go coarser. You don't want to go coarser. The reason is when you do like a drip coffee or a pour over, you're using a fresh stream of water consistently, so it leaches it. There's a lot of physical chemistry, but things go from area of high concentration to low. In a cold brew, it's immersion. It's just sitting there. So if you take one coffee bean and break it up into 10 pieces, it's going to hit solubility, stability pretty quick. If it's in 100 pieces or nanoparticles, you get more. So your cold brew, you don't necessarily want to go coarser. I would say start with your drip grind and keep it. I think people like it because when they go very coarse, they forget about it and they can walk away. And it's very forgiving. But I think you're going to get a better extraction if you stay finer. So if you grind for drip coffee, just start your cold brew there.
All right, I'm just pouring some water here and get this water going. So with that, we bring up the level of grinders. Now, this grinder here, you recommend?
That's what I recommend to every starting person.
4 years ago, I think I got this grinder.
$30.
I think I paid $80 for it at the time. They're going for $50 now, and this thing is a.
You paid $80 for that?
Yeah, at the time. It's going for $50 now.
When I used to recommend it to people, it was like $30, $40 special, and then it started to climb.
It's $50
and after
now.
COVID, it went up to $50.
Yeah, no, I definitely paid $80 for it. I remember I was like, oh, I'm going to use it for like going 4 years.
$80,
it still works.
wow.
Fantastic. Use it every day, minimum 2 times a day,
It's a
maybe 3
Cuisinart,
times a day.
yeah.
You can also get hand grinders, which
Yeah.
work really well. I used that for a long time before I upgraded this. I was like, okay, I do like this coffee thing. I'm in.
Hand grinders are cool, but get in the morning.
But those are going for like $35 now. They're
Really?
not cheap anymore. Yeah.
I've seen some very expensive craft ones now. In fact, my assistant Joe has an interesting one for espresso. It's actually it's easier. The design is new, but again, you go in camping, you pack that on a French press, and you're good to go.
But the grind level makes a huge difference. Huge difference. Like, complete difference.
And this is a Burr Grinder, so that's the key thing. The reason I suggested it to Dennis and a lot of people who ask me is you want to start with a Burr Grinder because it doesn't, like a blade grinder, beat up the beans. It just crushes it.
Which is this.
And yeah.
A lot of people that have a coffee grinder, they get this thing as the spice grinder. This does not work.
Yeah, that's for spices and your cannabis, no coffee, okay?
Yeah, because what happens is, so for example, we're going to go a fine grind here, but when you go to pour over, those sorts of things, you want a coarser grind.
And you want it consistent.
It's inconsistent.
Yeah,
it's
and this beats up the bean, and a lot of the flavor and the oils just get dispersed. Whereas you're better off spending the $50. Yeah, if you're gonna get serious about coffee, which I encourage you guys to do, a grinder is the single most important thing because with that, you have a lot of power. You can try coffees from different people. And at $50 for a Brown, how long have you had that? 4 years?
4 years. I'm saying this. Yeah. I'm saying
that
thing.
That Cuisinart Burr is a good starter. They get really high. The one in my house is $700. But
you're a coffee.
I'm a nerd. So
that's just like my cameras.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that thing has been going for minimum 2 times a day. So this is gonna be kind of loud here. But you say kind of fine. That's the thing too.
No, just if you're doing French press, stick with your pour over grind.
Okay.
Yeah. So start it there. Yeah, you don't have to go super coarse. That's the sound of a man working on the truck.
Anybody say anything to chat? Any questions?
No questions yet.
By the way, feel free to just jump in whenever, Aaron. Yeah, so this setup today was a little bit different. Like I said, I wanted to have 4 cameras. One wasn't working. The audio, for some reason, decided to take a poop shoot.
It's all YouTube's fault. Everything worked. It's you, YouTube.
YouTube, give me an audio indicator, for God's sake. When I'm
That's we're going to switch platforms, okay?
Oh, no, it's not get crazy. Let me get this signal here.
Yeah, and Burr grinders you can use for these 3 things. The reason mine is more expensive, it's an espresso grinder, and that's a more precise application. Those are expensive. So for those of you who will say, oh, I want to get an espresso, a lot of people now were telling me, give me a go for an espresso setup. Spend your money on a grinder. That's your world. It's like how chefs spend money on blades. Your grinder is where you should spend your money.
Yeah, we're not going to cover espresso because that's
no. But I'm just people are going to ask, well, can I use this for espresso? No, don't use this grinder for espresso.
It's kind of like if you're buying an espresso machine, that's like buying a high-end car and then putting low-end gas, low-end tires, low-end oil.
Although espresso machines have come down in price quite a bit. There are some really nice entry-level
But they're still finely tuned machines, though.
Yeah.
It's like you're not going to.
So you're going to need a grind. You're going to spend money on that.
You're not going to put
I know somebody. That'll probably be a whole show we should do.
Yeah.
On espresso. If you guys want it, comment and say.
So how much coffee would I put for this?
I go 16 to. I still use my 16-to-1 ratio for drip and immersion.
Question here from Cat Killjoy. She asked,
Cat Killjoy.
What's a good whole bean coffee to start with as a newbie?
Mishka. Honestly, his coffee works really well because it's middle of the road.
Biased here.
Well, no, but I mean I've tried a lot.
No, for me, I can't say anything, but he will.
I've tried a lot of coffees, and they're either too light, so they're very like.
Can I grab the bag and show her?
Which one?
The retail bag. I can't. My short arms can't reach it. Yeah, this is on Amazon. It's whole beans. Brown Bear beans or Brown Bear Roastery. We're on Amazon. And I think this is like $14 for a 12-ounce bag. So
Like
there is. This would be a good one to start.
This isn't sponsored. Like, I think this is a great start because one, you formulated it for espresso machines. But I love this coffee in pour over. I've used it in cold brew. It's middle of the road, so it's got a little bit of chocolate, a little cocoa, a little caramel, a little bit of fruitiness, not too big. So you can kind of go, okay, I kind of like the fruity notes. Maybe I want to go explore these sorts of beans. Maybe I like the chocolatey stuff. Maybe I want to go this, or maybe I like it more tart. So go. It's a good, like, it's middle of the road. You can go, okay, I kind of like this. Maybe I can jump up to a darker roast or a lighter roast and kind of go from there. The thing about coffees, it's very much like beer. When you first start drinking beer, like, this tastes like piss. Oh my gosh, how can anybody drink this? And then you start getting into craft beers. You go, oh, there's ales, there's stouts, there's IPAs.
Yeah.
Same with coffee. Like, I honestly rather drink coffee than drink nowadays because it's such a more varied.
We're getting older, folks. But yeah, I would say for Cat, a medium roasted coffee is good. So if, and I encourage you to shop around, not just ours, but, look for a medium roast and start there. And, once you start at a medium, which most people drink, if you want something heavier, you can adjust the grind or go darker and try a lighter. But I would say start at a medium. Ours is a medium. And
the one thing that if you're trying different coffees is go whole bean. Because if it's pre-ground, it's whatever goes. It's typically going to be dark, which is because it's meant for just a standard coffee machine, drip machine. People are going to load it with so you have to go whole bean. So I'd at least recommend getting a grinder or use a pestle and mortar.
No, I'd rather you use a beat up a spice grinder. But whole beans, for the same reason you use whole spices and grind your black pepper. In 2 days, ground coffee dies. So the stuff in the grocery store has been dead for a long. They're mummies. So
I'm using a scale here, which is once you get into the higher levels of coffee, like you start experimenting with different percentages and stuff. This becomes super crucial. This $10. My last one lasted 10 years. This one I've had for 2 years now. Best $10 you can spend.
Yeah.
Now I typically don't even measure stuff. Like when I do pour over, I already have my measurements. Like I literally do, like I measured it out because I have the right ratios, but I just use 3 fistfuls of the grinder.
You end up getting your own ratio at home.
Yep, and you find what you like.
I have a buddy who he goes through 10 pounds of coffee a month. He doesn't have a business. Him and his wife go through. And then they make Arabic coffee too. So they drink coffee all the time. And he just kind of he's come up on I've told him the ratio, but he's used it and eyeballed it and he has a thing. You'll get to know eventually, but 16-1 is a ratio, usually. So for a pour over, even my espresso, I have 20 grams of coffee and 20 times 16 is 320. So I use 320 milliliters of water in my pour over, or you can use it in your French press. And you just start there. That's a starting point. Everyone has different tastes, so you might need more water, you might like less, but start there.
So I'm going to set that aside. This is pretty much done. So this is the nice thing about this is it has this little
That thing looks
here.
like Darth Vader's helmet. That reminds me of.
But I'm actually really excited to try this. And Aaron, I'm excited for you to try this as well because you requested the cold brew.
Okay. Here comes the crack, folks. I just want to splash. I've already had a lot of coffee this morning.
I should have had more coffee. Maybe the stream would have been working.
What? Grazie. I'll hand this over to him.
This is the beer fermented, or beer yeast fermented. This is the other.
Oh.
You've gone really deep, sort of into like weird coffee stuff.
I have.
That Jameson coffee that you did with ginger beer, like.
You like that the best?
I had to be what almost. Oh, dude, I take it back. I've had this grinder for a lot longer. My time frame right now is very screwed up because COVID has screwed everything up. I've had that grinder for 6 years, I think. Basically since we met. A little bit after that.
Wow. That's interesting.
Well, it's a little strong, but.
So if I remember this, we took it. Oh, this is an Indian monsoon coffee, and we treated it with Brett yeast. Yeah. And we had no idea what happened. And the coffee ended up like a milieu with fluid, and it smelled beery, fruity, kind of weird. And
water it down a bit?
It was weird roasting it because it was wet, just like it freshly processed.
You want to water it
So we had to let it sit out in the shop and then roast it.
But yeah, this is.
I had no idea what to think. It was so off the charts, I didn't know what to do with it.
Like, does this taste like coffee to you?
a little rough.
It tastes like beer,
Well,
to be honest.
remember, it's cold brew, so it's really strong. Like I said, if you water it down a little bit, it adds
It tastes like a dry stout, to be honest with you.
It does. I would agree to that.
And it smells like a beer. So when we had this, first person who tried it said, this is beer. This tastes like beer. So we actually got coffee to taste like beer by using the yeast. But Dennis has had this bag. It's been a year.
I like it hot.
It's been a year. It's been aging in the bag for. It's actually gotten softer and better. I was surprised he told me he had it for this show.
So you also have going back to like the Jameson one.
That make a, you know what that would make? An interesting cocktail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That with a little bit of simple syrup. So that's the thing too is, I like drinking coffee black, but some are elevated with a little bit of sweetener.
Oh, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
No, it's like adding a little bit of water to your whiskey. It just opens it up.
Yeah, and I
'Cause you're
think
not masking
sugar,
it, you're
no,
opening it.
sugar. Sometimes coffees, depending on your roast and how fresh it is, the carbonic acid can kind of create some noise on your taste buds. So sugar, I've found, a little bit of sweetener kind of masks that noise and allows you to taste other stuff. So that's what,
I think I'd learn to.
that's why he's just urinating himself all over the place.
I'm flustered.
That's why back in the day, Italian espresso, they would have a little bit of sugar in the bottom to back off the roastiness. So there's nothing wrong. The best coffee is a coffee you like. If you like a little sugar in your coffee, fine. You like cream, no big deal. Cream is actually cool because
Couple questions here.
fat carries a flavor.
So, Tanny is looking for a recap on the 16 to 1 what?
So that's 16.
So it's a 16 to 1 ratio. So
For
let's
every
just
1 gram
say,
of coffee.
yeah, so every gram of coffee uses 16 times the amount of water. So in my house, classically, I always have my grinder set at 20 grams of coffee. So if I'm doing a pour over, I'll put 20 grams in in my little pour over setup. I have hot water and I have it on a scale, but then I'll pour 320 times 16 is 320 ml. So that's where you start.
Yeah.
So it's a 16 to 17 to 1. I usually go 16 to 1.
And the thing is, it's easy for coffee because 1 gram of water is 1 milliliter.
Yes, sorry, I missed that. I keep thinking everybody's had the science I have. A gram is an ml for water because of the density. So, so when we convert the 20 grams of coffee to 320 grams of water, 320 grams is equal to 320 ml. That's a very key thing.
Yeah.
I just assume everybody's in my head.
It's the same thing because it's
Yeah.
one of those things we did in physics, chemistry.
This is where pharmacists think like everybody is a pharmacist, where everybody's not. So
So one of the things too is if you don't have a scale, right? Just you can use volume. It's not going to be precise. You're never going to get the exact same results because the mass is 100% better. But if you're doing like 16 to 1 to do like, okay, a cup of this and then 16 of these for water.
I think another volume that people use is 2 tablespoons to a cup. That's like the generic thing when you buy a coffee maker and you open it and it says put 2 tablespoons for every cup you're going to brew. There's American cup and European cup. I think the difference is 8 to 6 ounces. But if you don't have it and you're out on vacation, I think it's like 2 tablespoons for every cup you're going to brew. That is a very imprecise thing, but you're on vacation, you need coffee. But if you're home and you have your druthers, 16 to 1 ratio. If you don't have the equipment, that's where you should aim to get to. Get your equipment to get to that.
So this is, I think, probably the next
Oh, I remember that came out.
simplest thing.
The
to getting coffee.
AeroPress. It's like a cross between espresso and French press.
Now, I think the coffee's fine coming out of this. I personally don't like the AeroPress because it's too much cleanup. I hate cleaning things up. That's
AeroPress
why
made me nervous because at work I used to make it and I used to always hope the cup wouldn't slide and then everything would.
So it's a pretty straightforward. It's basically like a plastic tube. You put a filter on the bottom. This thing's got some stuff here.
Looks like a rocket launcher you'd use in
Yeah,
infantry.
it's like a. And you basically
There's a
put your
tank
coffee-
incoming.
Wait, how does it? I forget. Yeah, you put your. I can't remember now. Put your coffee in here, right? Oh, I can't remember anymore. It's been a while.
I can't remember.
Put your coffee and your water in here.
And you put the hot water and then you cover
put
that.
this on top.
And then people have there's competitions with that. Like you
Yeah.
can let it steep for a while, let it steep not for a while.
People talk about all sorts of things. I'm not gonna make it because we're at the French press going. But yeah, this one works really well for camping too because it's or going somewhere at work or that sort of thing because it compacts pretty quickly, pretty easily. You can stick pens in there, pen holder. I don't know.
Nice.
Because it's
Bait. You can put bait in there.
This goes for, I think, $35.
There's so many gadgets now. There's little hand espresso things where you squeeze it off you're on the road and you push it down and you get a little espresso.
Yeah.
I got my guys at the race shop when they're out on the racetrack. He has a little thing. He puts hot water and then he gets his espresso. So.
Yeah. So AeroPress, another good sort of entryway if you don't want to bother with getting all sorts of stuff, kind of thing. Now, if you like coffee and you kind of want to take the next step, before we get to pour over, let's talk a little bit about the different regions of coffee. Like for example, this Verona, it has a tasting notes. It doesn't tell where it's from, but if you see some of the other ones, it'll tell you like a Sumatra, which is a great one. It has the tiger because it's from
Southeast Asia.
Yeah, South America. So, tell me a little bit about the differences and the different regions and the flavor profiles that they
Okay,
bring.
so like real quick, because we can go through bunny trails. Coffee's genetic stock is originally from Ethiopia. So Ethiopia and Yemen, they're right across the strait. That's where coffee was discovered, and plants were stolen and moved around. So East Africa, for me, has the most complete coffees, but every region is a little bit different. So Sumatras have very earthy, tobacco-y body. A lot of times coffee is grown with other crops like cocoa, cabbage, carrots, tobacco. Sumatra is a bit unique. They're grown in the forests, and they have that kind of almost dankness and full body. Coffee is grown at altitude, like Kenyans are very light. South Americans are like that too. So aside from the regions, coffee has many varietals. So it's exactly like wine. Like you like your cabs, you like your Cab Francs, but California cabs are very different from cabs in Europe. And people who are into wine know that, and coffees are the same thing. So some are known for more heavier base flavors. Some are known for more higher fruit terroir. Some have both. And some you can kind of control the processing and get what you want, which is a new thing, designer coffee. People are using beer and wine bacteria to process coffees for certain things. That's the next step, future. So
Yeah, so kind of, I think if you like dark stuff, chocolate, caramel, however the hell you say it. I say however, I'm South now. Caramel. I'm a huge fan of Sumatra and South Americans. You know that. You have me pinned. Like when you have a coffee that's that blend, you're like, you know to come to me. African coffees or the Ethiopians are much fruitier. They're almost tea-like. I remember you made one and I made it for my mom and she goes, "There's no sugar in this?" And I go, "No." She goes, "Is this tea?" I go, "It's coffee."
It's probably a lighter African. I probably roasted a little medium light. Okay.
So if you like tea stuff, try the African beans. If you like chocolate, caramel, dark cherry, try the
Sumatra and Brazils. Brazils are so those. A lot of those are from the bourbon varietals, but Brazil, Hawaii, and Jamaica are actually the same varietal.
Yeah.
It's just Hawaii and Jamaica, they're very short supply, so they have that name and they go for a lot, but you can get naturally processed Brazils and have the same bang.
Medium roast.
Medium dark. Brazils can actually go dark and get very chocolatey. That's why Brazils are low acid, very pleasing. That's why America grew up in Brazil and Colombian coffees. So
Yeah. Now one thing too is there's also two different types of coffee beans.
Robusta and Arabica, yeah.
Now Robusta usually that's how I grew up drinking coffee.
So we all drank
in the mocha pot, which burnt to shit, dark as hell.
But it's got the caffeine.
It's robust, and you have to load it up with chocolate.
Sugar.
And
that's your people's coffee. That's Cuban coffee.
Exactly.
I used to live in Miami. That's all we drank.
That's this stuff right here.
Oh yeah, Bustelo.
If you're from the Caribbean or Cuban, Puerto Rican, you know.
If you're in Miami, you see that everywhere.
But this stuff is so dark. Like, if you take a sip of this, you're like, whoa, there's no way.
And that's utilitarian. I mean, you're working just like Italians and Cuban people like that, and it's a lot of caffeine. You put a little sugar, and you work in 12 hours a day, hard labor. You eat, you get a little bit, you keep going. You come back after lunch, you get a little bit, you keep going. And your people love stimulants because on top of that, they have a cigar in their mouth too. You gotta admire that.
Let me grind some of this and we'll get into pour over.
Sure.
So I ground too much, but so this is my preferred method of making
Oh,
coffee.
you do? Okay.
It takes a little bit longer, but there's something in the. It's kind of like something in the
Process in the morning.
It's sort of like cast iron. People are like, oh, I don't want it to season and clean it, but once you do it, it's like a rhythmic motion. It becomes like a dance almost.
That's the other thing. What kind of coffee drinker are you? Comment to let us know. Are you like, I just like it easy and convenient. I put it in my, what's the name of the Keurig? Or are you somebody who likes enjoy your coffee process in the morning? You know, you're heating up your water, getting this ready.
Well, that's the funny thing is I've always said I've never worked anywhere that had good coffee. Ever.
Yeah.
Ever. And that to me is such a, like, when you have a good cup of coffee and you sit down to work, you're like, all right, I'm ready. When you have that dank ass shit that just tastes like burnt a-hole, you're like, I can't. Like, you take a sip, it's like, how am I supposed to, like, they don't give a crap about us. Like, they can't.
No, actually, that's a great point. Most people come from a culture that's serious about coffee. When they go to work in corporate America, they're like, so that happened at the hotel. I'm at the Renaissance Hotel, and when the staff started realizing what coffee was on, they started drinking my coffee. And imagine it had to be, you can't drink a Brown Bear coffee. That's for the guests. We're going through it too fast. So no, the staff they love the coffee that we have compared to what they have for their guests. And it's kind of funny because when I go do events, so I'm in there, people who are at the hotel are like, is that your coffee? We like it. So yeah, there is a difference.
Yeah. So this is, your typical coffee pot is supposed to mimic this.
Your drip coffee, right? Your
drip coffee, which is, that's the normal coffee, like, put it on, burn the shit. Bobby didn't switch out the coffee, so now it's got mold in it overnight.
Come on, Bobby.
So, paper filter. I like to soak it first to get any
I do.
paper
Yeah,
flavor
I
out of it.
I actually like to run a little hot water. The white papers have that little paper flavor. I think the browns don't.
Now, at this point, I'm pretty sure we're not going to have any hipsters watching this. Because I'm going to make this how I make my coffee.
I'm triggered by that remark.
Which is complete opposite. So this is one of those things you'd be doing hot water. You'd have hot water in your glass to make sure it doesn't heat up. I'm going to be using glass here. You'd be measuring out the proper ratios, which for some reason I can never remember. It's to the point where I almost want to tattoo it on my arm. Just write it down. But like I said, I have basically figured out like where I need to have it up on this thing. And
he has a system.
Yeah. Now, one thing too I want to talk about is the vessel you drink coffee out of. We're used to people drink out of styrofoam cups, which is styrofoam is absolutely abysmal for the environment. And I'm not much of a green person, but if you've ever found a piece of styrofoam out somewhere, you go, how long has this been here?
Now it's masks. I'm running on the soccer field and I see masks and plastic bottles.
It doesn't dissolve, but styrofoam is like the worst thing to drink coffee
I
out
think
of.
it is.
It's packing material.
When I go to my clients and I want to try the hot coffee, they'll give me in a cup, whether it's paper or whatever. Not the same to me. To me, just give me ceramic. I actually prefer ceramic over the glass. It's probably just me.
This is for video.
Yeah, but there shouldn't be any difference. But I have found, I will tell you, if you get a very thin cup versus a very thick cup, your coffee experience changes. And it's just like wine. White wine glasses are narrower.
Or water glasses.
And they feed the wine in a certain channel in your mouth, and the reds are bigger so they can open up. So I like thicker ceramic. For full drips, I do.
I was going to say, this is bone ceramic. This is like a super thin lip, and I absolutely love this cup. I need to find a bunch that make these because, I love this cup. I
find for lighter, fruitier coffees, I like a thinner cup, probably because the shape of my tongue can pick it up. But for morning heavy, I like these. Espresso, I do like my demi-tasse cups, but I like a thicker one. So somebody out there has studied the flow rate of wine or liquids with respect to the shape, and someone studied that.
Yeah, and people say that's a waste of money. It's like, but they actually have actual applications. Because there was a study where they did about the bubbles in Guinness. And people were like, why? This is a waste of money.
Really?
But it actually had huge ramifications for packing and shipping things.
Did Nitro in a Guinness?
Yep.
And no surprise there, because Nitro cold brew coffee is the biggest rage. And actually, one of our biggest local customers in town, they have the best cold brew in town. It's Nitro cold brew. So they Nitro the cold brew, and it looks and tastes like a Guinness. So this cold brew he has would look like that and makes it creamy. No cream, just a nitro.
And it makes it, again,
completely changes it.
You can have the exact same coffee, make it in French press, make it in pour over, make it cold brew. Mm-hmm. You can nitro, and even just adjusting the grind level will completely change how they all taste.
And a good roaster will source a coffee where you can grind it differently, use different ratios, and you'll taste it differently. So Yeah, people like have an Ethiopian that someone buys, and as soon as he changes the grind level, it's a different coffee. He likes it, but his wife likes it a different way, so he has to kind of meet her in the middle, you know?
So one thing I want to go back to real quick is basically the roast of the bean. Because the original question was, one of the questions was, how do you get started? So looking at the beans, right? If we had to look at color, because that's pretty much the only we can really use, I would say that a medium level, like an actual medium level, is like a milk chocolate.
I would
Like a
actually
light
say
milk
a
chocolate.
dark chocolate because the lights are milk.
Remember, milk chocolate is like Hershey's. Dark chocolate is what we eat. Milk chocolate is light.
I would say milk getting close to dark. If it
the other
gets
way
too
to tell.
milky, too like caramel, like light, then that's light, yeah.
Yeah. And the other way to tell is, one, it'll be oily, which means it's super dark. And if you can crush it between your fingers.
Easily, yeah.
Yeah, if you can crush it between your fingers easily, it's dark.
One thing to look for
Like medium, you really have to press down on it if you.
is if you look at the beans, there's a little seam in the middle. Those puff up like popcorn. That's a well-developed coffee. So for a medium roast, certain varietals do, but lighter roasts are a lot tighter. So a coffee bean is exactly like popcorn. If you made popcorn at home and you don't completely pop all, how they're like, they have a little bit of white, but they have the hard thing and it crunches, those are lighter roasts. And the more you go, the more friable the bean becomes. So it's if you pop popcorn, it's a very dark roast, you can just crush them with your hand. They're easier on your grinders. The lighter you grow, they're a little bit tougher on your grinders. So
going back to the pour over.
here comes the pour over. There comes the fancy schmancy.
Now, I guess I'm gonna do this the way I usually do it. I'm gonna bloom this. Blooming basically means like expel the CO2 in it. It changes the flavor considerably to the point where somebody who doesn't drink coffee can tell it. Just basically just soak and let it sit. Now, this is another part. Like once you start getting into coffee, this is now we're kind of getting into the hipster realm. The gooseneck kettle.
Yeah, so gooseneck helps with the flow. So you don't just bathe the coffee. And one thing, so what I do when you bloom, so you see how we lost about 1 or 2 ounces. I bloom with 30, just an ounce, and you want to put enough water just so the coffee particles start absorbing the water, and it'll give out carbon dioxide. But what they do is that they set up a gradient in there, and they start dissolving the coffee, all the coffee flavor out. So then when you start pouring your stream of water, it's easier to leach it out. So I usually go for an ounce, and I try to not get, I pour it gently, and I try to not get that. Usually if I have ground it too coarse, it'll go through a lot quicker. So yeah, but that's fine. I mean, sometimes that happens. But as you play with it, get to a point where you put an ounce in, and I let it sit for 30 seconds, and then afterwards you just meter out the rest of your coffee out over the space of 2 minutes, 2 to 3. What you never want to happen is like once you pour the coffee in the slurry, you never want the water to run out to where the coffee is exposed to the air, because a lot of that flavor compounds that you want to capture gets it's aromatic and it gets lost out to the air. So you always want to keep it submerged, and you want to capture all that flavor. And you can smell it too.
This is where it's like cathartic to me. It's just washing it, pouring it.
Yeah. Sometimes when you get a fresh coffee, the bloom will look like a volcano coming up.
Like vinegar, baking just boom,
and it'll start smelling up. So that's usually when coffee is very fresh. If you get a very dark coffee and you pour coffee and it's flat and nothing happens, that's a dark roasted coffee that's been sitting for a while. So the bloom can tell. It's not necessarily a good or bad thing. Sometimes when we roast coffee, we like it to sit for a couple of days and let the carbon dioxide come out. That's why our bags have a little valve in the back. So
just like wine, some are better.
Just like wine, yeah. But for our coffees, and they sit in the bag, they actually get very well as weeks go by, and that's because the sugars in there start to mature.
Yeah. So one thing too is I'm using the paper. This was a little bit too coarse, so
that's fine. Yeah,
quick.
It's a good lesson.
If you decide to go this route and get the metallic filter, it's a completely different grind level. Like you have to go super coarse, otherwise it'll never.
It's different.
Filter.
This is a cleaner cup, and you have to think the metallic filter has little pores, so more coffee solids get across. This one holds back a lot more, so it's really just a preference. I'd say the metallic filter is like closer to a French press.
So one thing
and it's easier to clean this because you just dump that in the bin, whereas a metallic filter, it stays. And I have to tell you, If you put coffee in your sink, you don't want to put it in a disposal because coffee particles find each other in your pipe and they eventually stick up and form a solid thing. So you really want to dump your coffee in your bin or save it for your plants. Don't ever throw it down in your pipe.
Yeah. And one thing too is a small ramekin works really well for these pour over to just kind of keep it. I let that dry out so I can throw it away after. Now, one thing that you do want to do is you do want to mix it.
Just give it a stir.
Little chopstick, little chop.
Yeah, all the solids will settle in the bottom. Espresso is the same way too.
We also have the French press here, so I'm gonna go ahead.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
I know. Well, you know what this tastes like. So I'm gonna get
Yeah, no, I'm good. I've already had 2 to 3 espressos this morning.
Any questions?
None right now. There was one earlier about just like both of your favorite grind levels, or not grind levels, excuse me, roast levels.
I would have to say for me as a roaster, our products are between the light, medium to medium dark. We stay in the medium range because that gives us a happy medium between the terroir of the coffee, and coffee does have terroir like wine, and the caramelization. So that caramelization is big. That's the signature of my coffee. And we do it for different reasons. Medium dark, our espressos are that way because we need it to cut through milk. But for a lot of our specialty single varietals that we do for certain folks, we do like a medium light because we want to highlight the terroir of the region. So we have a few Peruvian coffees that are very floral and also a lot of body. And we do it for one of our customers and they sell it as a special of the month. So we have a different country every month. So for those, we go lighter.
But what's your favorite? What do you like? What's your?
You know, I go back and forth. Oh, so actually, my real favorite is the roast level that we do in Mishka. For me, every day at home, so that we can do a lighter Ethiopian, and I like tasting it. But for me, the roast level that we do, the Mishka, which is a medium, getting trend into dark, is what I like.
So Aaron's trying the 2 different coffees. That right there in the big cup is the French press.
So far, I like the French press the best.
Like I said, this one was a little bit different.
Body.
See, it's literally the exact same coffee, and it tastes different depending on how you make it. So this had a little bit more, so you might like something a little bit darker.
Mm-hmm. Or at least he likes an extraction method that's heavier, so he would like espresso as well. And I'm guessing you grew up drinking espresso or mocha pot. That's why. And I drink espressos daily, so that's why I like this, and I do Americanos too. So
yeah, this was.
Yeah, certain months of the year I drink a lot of. So the last 5 months I've been drinking pour over, and now I drink espresso. When it's cold, I tend to drink pour over because you have a nice hot, full cup in the morning. You know.
Yeah. So again, going back to like how to get started in coffee, it's find like a medium roast and try different roast levels. Maybe try different brew methods. Like I said, you can start with cold brew. Start like maybe even 18 hours cold brew. See if that's too light, too dark, and adjust from there. If it's too light, let it just sit longer. Go that way. Because like I said, like Aaron just tried 2 different brew methods, same coffee, completely different.
I'd say if you're gonna get serious about coffee and start, the first thing you do is get a grinder like that one, a Burr Grinder, that's adjustable, and a scale. Because that gives you the weapons to actually try everything and find your inner coffee self. Because when you get a grinder, you have access to roasters like me who roast whole beans, and you could try single varietals, blends, and all that stuff. And when you get the scale, it gives a quantitative scale. So now it's scientific. So now you can try light, dark, from me, from other roasters all over the country, and you can try it all different ways. So you see with the scale and the grinder, he made coffee 3 different ways. So I'd say start with that. Your equipment is what? A good scale and a good grinder, which is what you have, and I think you probably have links to it. Links to it, right?
$50 for the grinder. You can go cheaper, and $10 for that scale.
Once you do that,
cheaper on the scale. $10. That Ozeri is.
Yeah, I would say get one that plugs in. The battery's a pain in the ass. Or get a USB one.
So I'm going to say this. So there's a couple different scales, right? I'm going to tell you why I like this one. Now, we need to do a whole video on this. One, the buttons are tactile. Anything that's touchscreen, trash. Your hands are wet, it doesn't work. Forget it. It's trash. This has AA batteries. Easy to replace. The other ones usually have little tiny those flat ones. And this has this thing here which I can just take and replace. The ones that are flat are cool, but you put a bowl on top, you can't see anything. Literally, best $10 you will spend. Like I said, I'm not sponsored. You can go the higher end and get like $100 scales, which would be nicer, but for $10, you literally cannot beat that scale at all. I've tried all sorts of them.
And you what you really want to look for is what we call ourselves our craft and specialty roasters. A lot of people say they're premium coffee. Premium coffee was a word that a lot of big roasters use for their up-level thing, but you want to look for craft and specialty roasters. And get whole beans and look at the region, and they'll also have a write-up at the roast level on what you can taste. Just once you have these two things, just go and try from all, and you'll eventually find the style of the roaster you like.
And you'll start to see keywords too on labels. Like you won't see espresso beans. Like we said, that's a farce. That doesn't really exist.
Yeah.
You'll start seeing like the notes, like the tasty notes. Like like this Verona says dark cocoa and caramelized sugar. Again, still a little bit dark, but now you're starting to get, like you're saying, the whole beans. That opens up so many doors. You're like, okay, this is maybe something I want to do. Like it even says here, dark roast, which I mean, that will say dark. But this is not dark like you see in the store.
Right.
Like the Starbucks, you go to the store, it's pitch black, oily. It looks like it's been covered in butter, which goes to show like even Starbucks at this level.
Yeah, and it's deliberate. Like there's specific roast points they do their different products, but they're catering to people who will definitely put stuff in their coffee, and that's how they make money. Every pump you put is extra 50 cents, and cream. Once you start adding it, that's where the price goes up to $10. $10 for a coffee every day.
Yeah, that's because the lighter it is, it can't stand up to the
cream,
the sugar.
No.
So
also they buy coffee by the kilotons. So the quality varies widely. So they have to roast at a uniform level. So at that level, they won't be able to get a lot of the terroir that we get. And that's just the nature of their business model. I mean, the volumes they go through, they affect the price of coffee. You know what I mean? If they stop buying coffee, there would be so much coffee on the market. So,
and the main reason that I think you should drink black coffee, besides flavor, enjoyment, and all that stuff, 0 calories or 2 calories. You start calculating Starbucks stuff. Cream, sugar. It starts to add up.
Yeah. You could use what's the thing that you put me on? The sugar substitute, but it's a brown one. It's made from.
But still, you can still a little bit.
It has a brown sugar one. I use that in my espresso in the morning.
You can use those, but
0 calorie.
Bulletproof. People drink bulletproof because it's healthier. You're literally adding butter and calories.
Butter is a lot more. Fat is a lot more calories per unit.
Calories per cup of coffee.
Yeah.
But black coffee, fantastic.
Speaking of additives, Mr. Patriot Warrior asks, should you add salt to coffee?
So good point.
Chow electrolyte drops.
Very good point. So let me give you a history of that because I do that. No one asks about it. It's coming back. So that used to be called black gang coffee. So back in the days when ships were coal powered, sailors of course loved their coffee, but they'd work in the engines and they'd have to shovel coal. So the gang, you were literally black from coal, and you'd lose a lot of salt just working in there. So when they made coffee, they'd sprinkle salt. And in the Navy back then, roasting wasn't as sophisticated as now. They were very dark Southeast Asian coffees, and sometimes a mix, and it would be dark. So the salt actually helps make the coffee smoother, just like citric acid does for wines. And you can sprinkle salt in your coffee or when you're brewing it, and it'll make a dark roast a little smoother, but it replaces the salt you use. So when I first started coffee, I wrote about that, but nobody knows about it. And I've seen it. The big coffee gurus kind of talk about it, but I'm like, dude, I knew about that 10 years ago. But if it's a very dark roast and you're at a hotel, just put a little bit of salt in there. And I will tell you, salt isn't a driver of hypertension than most people think, unless you're very salt sensitive.
Speaking as a pharmacist.
I'm a pharmacist. But a lot of it is driven by weight and the amount of insulin response from your carbohydrate intake. So if you don't have a problem with blood pressure, you don't really have to worry about the salt. And if you're active, you actually are in a salt deficit. So it's just you're just getting a little pinch. But very good question. Not a lot of people know to ask that.
I'll say this: I just tried it, and Aaron just tried it.
Did you guys just put salt in there just now while I was talking? I'm so oblivious.
That's super interesting how
it completely changed. Which is why sometimes when you see people make desserts, they'll put sweet, but they also put salt. Ooh. Also, salt will help carry flavor. That's why you need it for steaks, baby.
Steaks, and here's the other tip. If you eat chocolate chip cookies,
salt goes
flaky sea salt. This is expensive, but trust me, this will take your chocolate chip cookies over the top.
And that's another bacon. Salt and chocolate, salt really accentuates chocolate. Really does.
But So yeah, so kind of going back. Any other
That's a great question.
It looks like we're good for now.
All right, so
Questions.
Going back
Pick
to
my brain.
going back to like basically the best way to start grinder and a scale.
Grinder and scale. And then go from there. And you decide how expensive you want to get the gooseneck. You don't have to get a gooseneck. If you have a container to pour hot water in at a slow rate, you're good to go, you know?
Again, you start getting into the temperatures and stuff, but if you just want to get into it.
And there's so much information, there's also so much misinformation. So if you have a question, listen, we do Coffee 911. Just DM me with a coffee question. I'll answer. I love to do that. And I tell people if you have questions, just shoot me and I'll try to help you out as best I can.
On IG, what's your...
Brown Bear Roastery and brownbearbeans.com.
Yep.
And look for this logo, Brown Bear Coffee. This is my logo on IG. And you might see the link, Brown Bear Beans on IG.
And I'll have everything linked in the link in the description. All the stuff we used here today. I'll probably add some more stuff. The coffee, start with Mishka. Great starting coffee.
Yeah, it's a good starter. And if the good thing about that is if some of you watching have an the Cuisinart or Breville, they make an espresso machine with a built-in grinder. I don't normally like those, but this one is actually good. It looks like a square with a Burr Grinder built in. A friend of mine actually just bought one, so this would be a good espresso to start if you have that. So you just have to calibrate your grinder a little bit. So
that, and if you have...
Question when you guys are ready.
Yeah, go ahead.
How does water temperature play into it?
Good question. We forgot about that. So coffee extraction, I usually put mine about 202 to 209. So that's the sweet spot for coffee. You get to boiling, it's too much for it. But what happens I actually set my kettle like that at 212. The reason being, when the water hits a coffee mass in the 2 or 3 minutes, it cools. And before we tell people strictly 202, don't go over that. But it cools in the thing. So I account for it and I go up. So set your kettle at 212 and that should be fine. If you go too higher, a lot of the coffee matter starts escaping. So even espresso machines run at about 200. So 212 is a good temp for coffee. And for those of you who are worried about fungus or bugs, it'll kill anything at 212. So
I do mine at 207.
Yeah, that's fine. That's perfectly fine.
Again, it goes back to this.
My house is at 69 degrees when I sleep. So when I get up in the morning, it's cold and I do my pour over.
It goes back to like there's so many variables. Like it's such
It's cool because you can come up with your own signature taste. Like I don't prescribe anything as perfect. Like I said, the best coffee is the coffee you make at home. So
thing is, like I'm passionate because it's like one of these things like if you drive a crappy car your entire life and then you drive a good car, which I never have, but it's just like, whoa, wait, you mean a car can perform like this?
Yeah.
Like it's just like beer. You start drinking Bud Light, like, man, beer is crap. I'll never drink. This is horrible. Then you have a nice stout, or you like an IPA, or a really good lager. You go.
I've seen the look on people's face when I give them the coffee, and they're like, "I didn't put any sugar." It happens. I'm not tooting my horn. It happens to my landscaping guy who's never had coffee, and I just come and I give him like 12 ounces at a time, and he's like, "Dude, what did you do to this?" I'm like, "That's how coffee's supposed to be, bro."
The first time I went to your place and you gave me espresso black, and I remember you go, "Here, try to go," and I looked and I go, "This is gonna taste like ass." And I tried it and I go, "Wait, hold on, this is."
I dipped my finger. I dipped my finger in it.
That was it. It was like a deep dark hole. Yeah, you had that little Rancilio.
I still have that Rancilio. Yeah. I bought that for $800. It's been with me. I went to Gainesville for guys probably close to 10 years now, and it still needs the Rancilio.
Yeah, espresso's a different animal altogether.
Even roasting for espresso is a black art. There's no science. You have to mess with it. So I mean, it took me 5 years to come up with this. And you have to roast each bean individually. And so for me to come up with this, I had to roast every variety, every region to taste individually, try to figure out how it would taste together and what roast level. And a lot of beans don't roast well together. So espresso there's a whole other line of study, but on making it. So yeah, I definitely will do a show on that together with them.
So again, what do I want to say? Frozen go with this. So I want to give these 2 bags away. These 2 bags that I bought. Again, not sponsored. These I bought off of Rishi. I'm trying to think of a good way to do it. How many people are watching, Aaron? 112. All right. So if you're here from the beginning, there was 2 lessons. that I said I wanted people to walk away with from.
I forgot already.
Just give me one of them. And the first 2 people I'll
give me a chance.
Reach out to me, Dennis at Black Tie Kitchen, and we'll figure it out. So Aaron, if you could take a note, or I'll just have to go back to the chat or something. If you see somebody post one of them, like let me know and we'll take a note of it.
So I do have a couple questions here. First one is from Anita Reason. Any need to freeze for 72 hours to kill bugs for the beans?
No. So a lot of people would put coffee in the freezer to preserve it. You really don't need to. For example, a lot of coffee roasters have bags that are resealable now, but you can fold it over and clip it and keep it in a cool spot, like a cool cupboard. You don't need to freeze it to kill anything. And I actually did a post on this because I noticed there's a trend among roasters, but coffee is an agricultural product, and once it gets processed and sent to us, they're in grain pro bags. We roast it in a roaster that's at 450 degrees for 13 minutes. The burner box at 1,000. And then we package it right away and it's brewed at 212 degrees. So you don't really have to worry about anything any more than you go buying fruits and washing it in the thing and your immune system. So a lot of that is
another thing too is you have to abide by health standards. Like you're not just packing this in the middle of some facility.
Right.
You have to actually go through
every facility is in the U.S. is has a health permit. So, but coffee as an agricultural commodity, it's not really a packaged food like charcuterie or meat. And it also goes through brewing after, so it doesn't really need all those protocols. So you really don't need to freeze it to kill anything. It's been this way since the 1800s, and they were way less sanitary with it back then. It would be in the hull with pigs, and then they would sell. Right now, it's and the sourcing standards. So with us, we use Arabica coffees, and they're sourced. They're smaller batches, and they really care for their coffees and the sourcing. So no, we don't really worry about that. There's another question you said?
What about altitude and temperature? Does that affect?
Temperature. Did you mean temperature in the location at the farm?
So there's going to be.
Is that what they meant?
There might be altitude temperature for the bean and how it affects the bean and how it affects maybe brew. So we'll take it from 2 angles.
Yeah, the altitude does affect the coffee. So 2 varietals at the same different altitudes would taste differently. Some farms actually, the land spreads vertically and the coffee is an agglomeration of different altitudes. But I'll tell you, at higher altitudes, there's less resources. So the plants produce less fruit, but more of the resources, nutrition in the plant goes to the fruits. So the coffees are very cleaner, a lot smaller grade, and more consistent. So higher altitude coffees are very prized for that. So Kenyans are 1,800 meters, Ethiopian are, Yemen are. Some go over 2,300. They're very dense. They're very different to roast from the lower altitude where there's a lot more food and the beans are a little bit bigger. So they make for different coffees. Yes.
Coffee's a cherry.
Temperature, yeah, coffee's a cherry. Temperature, yes. Southeast Asia is different from the mountains of Kenya, but coffee is generally grown in a belt no further than the Tropic of Capricorn and Cancer.
We're calling out some drips in chat here. Got any drips on the counter?
Drips? We have dripped stuff.
Yeah, drip.
Yeah.
Something's dripping on the counter according to chat.
Probably the mic picking something up.
Maybe they're on a pass feed. They're delayed and they're seeing, because it was dripping, yes.
Maybe. And then any thoughts on some of the pour-over devices out there like Chemex?
Yeah, Chemexes so there's a lot of pour-over devices that are a bit different. So Chemex, good question, and a lot of personal preference. Expensive, but Chemex uses that brown paper. They're very thick, slower drip, and they do very well with lighter roasted terroir-driven coffees. They just come out like teas. A lot of times if you have a heavier roasted coffee, you probably don't want it sitting as longer there. So Chemexes are great for that. I have a Melita at home. It's very cheap. And Kalita is a Japanese one. They're broader. My assistant Joe, who's a barista as well as a roaster, he likes a Kalita. So drip coffees, once you get to bigger hotel coffees, a lot of times the very flat bottom, where the coffee's in a flat bottom, is good because it creates a coffee bed and it leaches better. So that's a Kalita. So they're just different. Some people like them differently. Those Chemex are very pretty and they're very showy. They're nice. They're nice. They're definitely art piece.
If you're starting with coffee, don't start with a Chemex.
You don't have to start. You don't
like,
have to. But maybe you could put on your Christmas list and have somebody buy it for you.
Because even the filters are more expensive and stuff.
The
too.
filters
so like
are, where they make
like
their money.
25 cents a pop.
So as a roaster, I have a little Melita porcelain filter like that.
200 of these is like.
And I buy those
$8.
papers like on Amazon or something. I buy 300-400 because I buy for our shop as well. And that's how I make it. So it's funny because other people are like, Rishi, I use my Chemex. I'm like, I like it, but I have my little cheap thing here that doesn't break.
Here's why I like pour over.
Yeah.
Done.
And
no cleanup. Don't have to worry about mocha pots.
If you drop that Chemex, bye-bye, you know. And Melita and these guys make metal, not metal mesh things, but they make metal pour-over cones as well. So if you drop that, nothing happens. The only bad thing to that is your heat starts running away because of the metal. No, not the mesh. This is metal.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay,
yeah. But I like these because they keep the heat in. So, and it's pretty. Porcelain's old
that
school.
you can put in the microwave.
Porcelain's
Not
old
microwave.
school. Dishwasher.
Yeah. Comes out super clean, super white. Like I said, I love pour overs. There's a catharsis too.
These are great questions.
Throw it away.
I don't think these are beginner coffee people. I think these are serious coffee. We might have to step up and do an advanced video.
The snobs.
And this is actually great because what I'm finding is, remember when we started, I'm finding now that my prediction was right. Over the 5 years, people have gotten more sophisticated and everybody has a grinder now. Everyone I talk to, I don't have to grind my coffees and kill it. Everyone has a grinder now. Or everyone's like, tell me where I can get a bite right now.
And they're so cheap. And that's the thing too, is like, well, the other thing too is there's sort of the Amazon effect too, because there's no like, where do I go? We have to go to this Bed Bath & Beyond at 37.
Just
like,
click. And if enough of you order a grinder and my coffee in the cart, it'll start suggesting the grinder to people as also bought, which would help enable people.
Yeah, just to go back to that real quick, the two things to start: get a scale and get a grinder. $60 over everything. $10 scale, $50 grinder. That's if you get the Burr.
And that gives you access to play in the world of craft specialty micro roasters. And all over the country, they all sell online. So you can go to Idaho and find a roaster that you had gone and visited and liked, and you can just click buy.
Yeah. So if you're
or in Tampa.
Yeah. So if you're a fan of wine or beer, the variety in it, coffee
is the next.
Good. There's literally. The only health effect is the fact that there's caffeine, but other than that, you're not going to cirrhosis of the liver. You're not going to have alcohol.
Yeah.
It's literally
caffeine
like,
is the most traded drug.
I mean, it is a drug. It is a drug.
So
no doubt about it.
I'm still in pharmacy here, but just less regulated.
Yeah, you're not going to beat your wife over it.
No.
Got another question here.
People have beat me up over it.
Long-term stored coffee beans. If so, how is the best way?
Oof, long term. I'd probably say.
Well, what's long term?
At 3 months.
Question, like, why are you not drinking it? So these are 5 pound bags. These are, I sealed them like this. I just put a clip on them. This one I cut kind of poorly, but.
What you can do with this is you can, if you're going to go through half of that in 3 months, you can put a vacuum seal container or something with a seal and store that just to preserve it. The main thing that destroys coffee is oxygen, the presence of oxygen. So once we seal these bags, this little valve lets out carbon dioxide but doesn't let oxygen in. So if you have anything that can make an airtight seal like the old school mason jars, you can store your coffee in there in a cool place in your cabinet. You don't have to put it in the fridge. As long as you can keep it away from oxygen, you'll be good. And you don't have to grind. You're obviously not grinding it. Yeah, in sunlight, and you'll be good.
Yeah, the best thing is to grind it as close to the time you roast it.
Grind it when you need it.
Maybe the night before if you don't want to do it early in the morning, but
I know people who've done that. They'll grind it the night before so they can get up in the morning and they set up their brewer. They put it in and maybe it has a timer. So
yeah, if you have money to spend or some extreme
hire somebody to grind your coffee. No kidding.
Besides hiring a barista, you can get the grinder, the scale, and get like a Mocha Master or the OXO drip. Whatever it's called. Those are certified by whatever the Pour Association, which so it does the right proportions, the right weight.
Yeah, not all drippers are equal. If you just Google SCA coffee brewers, SCA certified coffee brewers, especially Coffee Association of America has certified a handful of brewers as brewing with the right ratio. And we have one at the shop. We have the OXO at the shop, and we have a few people we know who bought this Dutch one as a Mocha Master. It looks really cool, like a tractor. Yeah.
It's legit.
And they're very easy to use, very minimalist. So I highly recommend just go to that SCA certified coffee brewers, drip brewers, and the OXO is one. I think Breville and Cuisinart have one too, but the OXO is a workhorse. They're kitchen appliances or workhorse kitchen appliances. And if you got the money to spend, get the Mocha Master. Yeah.
That my buddy has one. It's
Yeah, your buddy and my other buddy who goes through 10 pounds of coffee a month. He didn't. I turned him into a coffee geek. He bought it and he said, so honestly, I'm going to tell you guys this. The equipment matters because he had a cheap coffee maker and he was always calling me when the coffee matures, I have to adjust the grind. He said, Rishi, he said, I now know what coffee is. He's like, I've never tasted your coffee. I've been mining for years.
This is why I like
He made it in a Mocha Master and his wife was like, what did you do different? And he said, all I did was put it in a Mocha Master. Now I can taste all these fruited, winey notes on the Ethiopian. So, yeah, if you're going to... And the Mocha Master has several different graduations, but this is
$22. I think for if it's the more expensive. I bought this for like $15.
But this is for us. We're single. If you have like a wife and you have like 3-4 people drinking, or you go through cups of, and people I know go through cups of coffee in the morning, yeah, spend your money in a good dripper. Yeah.
Got another question here, kind of interesting. What is the best pod coffee maker?
None.
Save your money.
But I will tell you this. Pod, I guess I mean Keurig or Nespresso.
Yeah.
So let me tell you this. So Keurig makes a little reusable metal filter. My aunt uses it. And you can actually, so it's convenient. A lot of people like it. So let's just say you had a grinder. You won't need the scale. You can get up in the morning, grind or any roaster you like, put it in a Keurig and make it. Here's the trick with the Keurig. Here's the bad thing. It's 16-to-1 ratio. Most people, the Keurig, I think, is 7 or 8 grams of coffee.
It's tiny.
You over dilute. There's not enough coffee to pull a big cup. So if you do the 16-to-1 math and you know the weight of the Keurig, you should only be pulling maybe the small cup.
If you were to cut one of those things open, the amount of coffee in there, you go, this is
not a lot.
It's nothing.
But Nespresso actually has very good espresso. It's pretty good. And a lot of coffee makers, a lot of small roasters will make their own pods for the Nespresso thing. But it's very tough for us because with pods, it's a pricing game. It costs us a lot of money to package those. And the big people like Green Mountain or whoever, they can drive the price down. So it makes no sense. So I'm not a big fan of the pod things. But if you have to, the Keurig has a reusable thing. And if you have an espresso, I'm not hating on you. An espresso for what it does in the morning does what it does. And you know, there's people who like the procedure like us, and there's people who want good coffee, but they're like, I just need it quick in the morning. And you know, for those people, then get the reusable metal. It's better for the environment because you're not tossing all that plastic. You're using the same metal one, wash it out, and you grind your coffee and put it in.
It's funny because as I've got older, like I'm not a green person, but
I'm a brown person.
As I become like an outdoor person, like I start to see all these things. Like, man, there's a lot of trash. Like
we do have a lot of junk.
You see
I mean,
bags. Like, man, like we really gotta.
I've been out of planet for a while, and when I was growing up, bottles were glass and steel, and you recycle everything. And now it's like I tell you, I run 3 times a week, and every time the kids play soccer, there's plastic bottles on the field all the time, and they just don't, you know. Used to be glass, and homeless people would pick up the glass and go sell it for 10 cents a bottle. I go, no, seriously, that's what they did in Trinidad, you know. So that would never be on the floor because cans and bottles, people would come with a bag, go into the brewery, and then get some cash, you know. Or my uncles would save the bottles and take it in, and when you buy a case of beer, you get a credit for the bottles. So, but yeah, it sucks.
Any other questions? Anybody quote the 2 lessons? One of the 2 lessons to take away.
One person did ask about mason jar cold brew versus using an actual.
You can use any vessel. Really, the cold brew is just the ratio and the time. You could use a mason jar and then strain it after. Mason jars are cool. I love mason jars. So it's the same. He used a 4-to-1. I have done a calculation, but like a pound to a gallon. And, play with your grind level, 20 hours in the fridge, start there, 18 to 20 hours to start there. You can go longer if you want. And here's a trick. You guys ready for a trick? I'm going to tell you this. Nobody knows this. If you make ice cream at home, I told you this, we're going to do it. Put a handful of coffee beans and milk and cold brew that for 24 hours. And then take that milk and make ice cream or use it to make desserts. Try that.
Aaron tried that ice cream I made with that. Remember it coagulated the milk. Remember I told you.
Yeah, and I don't know why that happened.
I don't know what happened, but like the
something was in that milk. Was it regular milk?
No, it was cream.
Cream. It's probably the high fat content. Because coffee is acidic and it extracts acid, so the cream probably had a high enough fat content where it started breaking down the cream.
And that's again.
But these guys did whole milk. Whole milk was it was stable enough.
If you start going down the coffee route, you do ice cream. then you can really start messing with the flavors, the chocolates, the caramels, the cherries.
Oh yeah, because the
like
fat.
it just
Yeah, the
opens
milk,
up a
the
world
milk
of
cold brew
possibilities.
is a very different extraction from this because a lot of coffee compounds and caffeine is fat soluble. So it pulls over the fat soluble flavor compounds, and it doesn't change color, but it'll pull over a ton of caffeine. So there's a restaurant in Tampa. If you're in Tampa, Cena, Italian restaurant, elevated Italian, very very good. They carry my coffee too. But I popped in there one night and they're like, we have something for you. And they made gelato with my espresso beans. But it was white. It wasn't dark. But I didn't sleep that night because caffeine is fat soluble. So it pulled over a lot of caffeine. So I just had like 2 little scoops of it. I was wired. But it didn't have this bitter coffee. It had, you know when you have a dessert and you have the coffee flavor? You know people who say they like, it's not bitter, but they like the coffee flavor? It was exactly that. So for those of you out there, try cold brewing it in a little bit of milk. Just grab a handful of beans and like 2 cups of milk. You don't need as
You
much.
can use just a regular coffee filter too to filter, or some sort of
Yeah.
mesh strainer.
Yeah, actually, these guys use whole beans. They didn't grind it.
Yeah, you can do that.
So if you grind it, it's a lot hotter. So try just a whole, you can take out the whole beans easy. If you make ice cream at home or panna cotta, any kind of cream dessert, drop some coffee beans in your milk for like 24 to 48 hours.
Any other questions?
What about a Hezedi coffee maker? I don't know what that is.
Hezedi.
The
I have to
name sounds
Google.
familiar.
My phone is off. Can we Google it? Anybody Google it? A Hezedi.
I feel like I'm
Hezedi as in pants.
What? How you spell that?
pants on the ground.
Eezzeti.
I've seen that brand.
Do you have
before,
your
I
phone?
can't
Is it
remember.
an espresso machine or a... Sorry,
Oh,
not
we can-
familiar. Could you comment what is it? Is it a drip or a...
Yeah, just message you on Instagram.
Yeah.
Because
I'm
we
not
end up
familiar.
going down the route.
Sounds like an Italian name, so maybe it's
ends
an
up,
espresso machine.
reviewing all the coffee machines out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so again, going back to the beginning, there's just this thing as espresso beans. If you want to start in coffee, get a grinder, get a scale, $10 Rosaria scale. You can go $50 Burr Grinder. Those
Remember,
get you
Burr
started
Grinder.
there. French press, whatever you want to do from there. The world is your oyster. Thank you, Rishi, for
Thank you,
showing up
guys.
here. Thank you, Aaron, for running the board. I can't reach the camera to turn on and show you the crazy setup that we have here. Sorry for all the technical difficulties. We'll do this again sometime.
Yeah, for
It was
sure.
fun. Thank you all. Have a good one.
Deuces.